name is Jim Turner, and I was born in Harlan County, Kentucky in 1836, just off the Clover Fork of the Cumberland River. My grandpa had been among the first whites to arrive here just 2 generations before, where he amassed over 5,000 acres of land and ran the only general store in the county. He had passed that fortune down to my pa, who still ran that store. And Pa was considered a good, charitable man who would help those in need, since he was one of the only men in Harlan County who paid taxes for owning a silver pocket watch. But he was also known as a ruthless and bloodthirsty to anyone who ever crossed him. You have to keep in mind that these general stores were the hubs of each community, the official headquarters of all political and religious ideology, which, truthfully, were exactly the same thing. All the powerful landowners and politicians gathered here and controlled all the commerce that flowed through the county. And any man who dared open another store in competition was not only risking his own life, but his entire family's life by doing so. Many times, competitors would try to move in, but they were quickly escorted out of the region, either on a swift horse or in a pine box. Now, many folks say that blood is thicker than water, but that isn't always the case, especially when it came to our first cousins, the Middleton family, who were also wealthy landowners. Naturally, their land adjoined ours since it had been divided from my papa's estate. Paul's sister had married one of those Middleton fellas, and that was the only reason those scoundrels had any wealth. And I tell you, there'd been a seething animosity brewing underneath the surface for years between the two factions. And it seemed like an all-out war could commence between the Turner and Middleton clans any day now. My pa was a stern religious man who was known to be the first person in his regular seat at the Methodist Church every Sunday, where he prayed to God for guidance in all spiritual affairs. Yet, it was also widely known that he would also regularly seek the counsel of moonshine and bullets for all earthly affairs. The powerful combination of the Bible and the bottle created a volatile powder keg environment in my childhood home, where my brother and I grew up as tough as barbed wire, and we quickly learned the art of gunpowder and lead. My older brother, William, was pretty level-headed in most situations, but he would quickly resort to fists and knives if the situation called for it. Me, I was much more calculating and devious. I stayed by my pa's side and followed his ways closely. Even in church, I was ordained as a minister when I was a teenager, and I'd sometimes be allowed to preach the sermons. Pa would smile with pride as I stood behind the pulpit, thumping the Bible and warning of vengeance for all our enemies. Yet, outside of the sanctuary, I was a different person. I was a budding outlaw. I had began sipping the bottle myself and stealing hogs just for the thrill. Once, I robbed an old man for $94, even though I didn't need the money. And even today, many folks believe I shot and killed him too. But the good lawyer that Paul hired proved otherwise in court. It seemed that I'd began to develop an appetite for destruction, and I liked the way it made me feel. I felt a power by looking down the barrel at another man, and the fear in their eyes seemed to fuel that appetite. And you might say that I was the one who lit the initial fuse for the war that would follow between my family and the Middletons. You see, when I was 15 years old, a big storm rolled through and blew down a section of the fence that divided the property between the Middleton property and ours. And wouldn't you know it, several heads of cattle belonging to the Middleton clan wandered onto our property. I took it upon myself to shoot every one of them, and 2 of the Middleton clan boys named Carr and David ran out with their guns and began firing at me, calling me a devil, before one bullet hit me in my arm and severely wounded me, just like that. Despite being a minister of the good book, folks started calling me Devil Jim. Now, I grew up in a time of great turmoil in America. During the years leading up to the war between the states, most places were united behind one ideology or another that underpinned the root causes of the war. But in my home state, we were completely divided on the issue, with passionate loyalties to both sides being common even within families. You see, all the states surrounding Kentucky had pledged allegiance to either the Union or the Confederacy, while Kentucky, she was torn with both Union and Confederate sympathizers when the war broke out, and both armies wanted to claim the state as their own. Both of them even included a star for Kentucky on their state flags. So both Confederate and Union armies constantly raided our state, engaging in guerrilla warfare, trying to intimidate any man who wouldn't join their cause by killing, stealing, and destroying all a man owned. Virginia was the Confederate capital, and with Harlan County bordering the state line between Kentucky and Virginia, it was ground zero for the most lawless atrocities committed during the Bloody War. Some of the most ruthless outlaws in American history earned their reputations and met their maker in this melting pot of violence. It truly was a land of kill or be killed, and only the strongest survived. It was here that I cut my teeth in the ways of the outlaw life. By the start of the war, I was 30 years old, and like every other man, I wanted to fight. Paul had sided with the South since all our money was Confederate, and I quickly signed up to fight for Confederate forces by joining Company D of the 49th Kentucky Infantry. Meanwhile, it didn't escape our eyes that worthless Middleton clan had signed up with the Union forces. But I quickly got tired of taking orders from officers, marching around, and just hanging around camp. I wanted to be where the action was, on the front lines. And to be honest, I had no personal allegiance to being a company man. I was more of a renegade, playing by my own rules. And while I appreciated the free clothes, the weapons, and the bullets that they had equipped me with, before you knew it, I defected from the army, and me and my brother formed our own outlaw posse. It was much more profitable than staging raids and ambushes on political rivals. That's where the excitement was. I began fighting against countless bands of Confederate outlaws that crossed over the Virginia line into Harlan County, raiding their camps and stealing their horses, burning barns and homes of Confederate sympathizers. Once, I told a man to open his smokehouse lock for me and my men, and he responded, "I'll die before I give you that key." And to that I replied, "Well, then you shall die." And I blew his entire head off at point-blank range. We lived off the land during the war, basically pillaging, plundering, and robbing anything I needed and killing anyone who wouldn't give it to me. Once, I was so hungry that I knocked a cow unconscious, and I cut a portion of its hind leg off while the beast was still alive, and I ate it raw before running the animal, screaming in agony, back into the herd. Before long, we got word that an old friend of mine, Carl Middleton, and his brother were camped with Union forces, and my brother and I decided to pay him a little visit. I camped on the side of the main trail behind a hollow log, and my brother hid in an ivy thicket just up the road, knowing that they would be traveling along that road the next day. Now you see, my arm had never fully healed up properly from that bullet those Middleton boys had shot me with, and it was time for a little payback. As he and his brother approached on their horses, I sprang up from the ambush and shot the younger one, crippling him for life, while his other brother bolted up the trail. Within a few moments, I heard my brother's musket sing out, killing the other Middleton boy dead. By the time the war ended, Devil Jim Turner and his brother William had killed several men, committed countless robberies, and were even suspected of burning down the Harlan County Courthouse. The justice system was determined to make them pay for their war crimes, And during the trial, they were both out on bail, and they made it clear that they wouldn't go quietly, as Devil Jim shot and killed the star witness for the state, which just so happened to be the leader of the Middleton clan. Meanwhile, members of Devil Jim's posse stabbed the court clerk to death before firing a pistol 3 times at point-blank range in the judge's face. By some miracle, the gun misfired all 3 times. Members of the Middleton clan offered a $1,000 reward to any man who could kill Devil Jim. But before they could kill him, in 1874, Devil Jim Turner and his brother were both convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. 16 years later, he was pardoned in 1900 after new evidence had shown that the Middleton clan had tried to kill him on several occasions. Yet, it was too late for Devil Jim. He had went to prison a strong mountain man at the age of 48, and he had come out a broken shell of himself at age 64, while his brother had died in prison. The one condition for his release was that he had to leave Kentucky. So he moved all the way to Washington State, and several of his descendants followed him to start a new life. For a man whose life was filled with violence that he inflicted on others, it's probably safe to assume that a bit of karma played a part in his demise. One crisp morning in 1910, as he stood over his wood stove, cooking breakfast, the feeble old shell of the preaching outlaw, Devil Jim Turner, suffered a stroke and fell face first into the stove before collapsing to the floor with his clothes on fire. His grandson heard his cries for help, but he was too scared to touch his body and chose instead to run a mile away for help. By the time they returned, it was a gruesome scene indeed, and Devil Jim somehow suffered until the next morning before leaving this earth forever. What about you, my friend? What do you think about the outlaw Devil Jim Turner's life? Let me know in the comments below. Oh, and be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for more true stories on Appalachia's past.